Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours. As always, this is where we gather every single day to help anyone and everyone who shows up to learn more about modern web-based production. It's where you can submit questions about media creation and distribution in all its forms. You can do that around the clock. The simple rules are one question per submission, and remember, somebody's going to read it aloud, so try to make your construction sensible and easy to read. You can use our Mukana system to not only put questions into the show, but vote on those questions, and the questions with the most votes get prioritized. We speak about them longer and probably get a little more information out about those. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget, you can always use this QR code that's popping up on the screen right now to go into kind of the instant system. That will allow you to submit your questions. So go through a short vetting process and might get into the show that day or the next day. So use all of those tools. That's how the show works, and we are ready to start there. So Guy is our reader this morning. Guy, what do our viewers and listeners have on their minds today?
First one up from Francis Fry in Cambridge, Massachusetts asks, it appears that questions are no longer timestamped on Office Hours YouTube descriptions. What do you recommend as a way to scan videos for the subset of topics we might be interested in?
And Alex Lindsay's going to handle this. Alex?
Yeah, I don't think it's gone forever. I think the person who does it is working on the Olympics. so the reason that it's not getting done right now is that there's just not somebody there to do it. A lot of everything here is volunteer, and if someone volunteers to do it, then it gets done. And so I think that we need to build a bigger team to manage that more effectively. So we'll take a look at what it takes to get that back up and running. As far as scanning videos for subsets of topics, I don't have a lot of great solutions for you out of YouTube. There's not an easy way to do that. So we are working on finding more automated ways to do it so that we don't end up with having a person leave or take some time off and have and not have any timestamps. so we'll work on that and try to make it better. But there's not any other easy way to do it. So next question. Sorry,
question.
I just went straight into being a host. So I'll get out of the way.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next question.
Jack Cannon, Phoenix, Arizona, asks, filming in the car to get some dynamic shots of the driver while talking. What solutions do you use for filming in tight spaces that are on potentially bumpy roads? Just a gimbal, or do you mount it up?
Courtney Gooden's going to start us off. Courtney?
I would avoid a gimbal, personally. For years, with heavier cameras like Panavision cameras or Arri cameras, film cameras, we'd just use a vacuum suction mount to the hood and shoot through the windshield, or a tray mount, which would go on the window and shoot through shoot through the passenger window to get a profile of the person speaking. If you want them talking into the camera while driving, everybody uses GoPros these days, and these lightweight cameras can be attached to the car. I would attach it to the car with a suction mount somewhere on the windshield if your camera is small enough to fit inside the windshield. Otherwise, you could mount it on the hood looking through the windshield. And depending upon whether you got a high reflectivity or, you could use a polarizing filter to try and make the windshield disappear a little bit. The problem is with a gimbal, anything that is based on inertia, if it's a bumpy road, the gimbal is going to be, the car is going to be moving around, the gimbal is going to be standing still, and that's going to look strange. But if the camera is attached to the car and the camera move at the same way, and only the outside looks to be moving a little bit. So it'll be more stable if the camera is attached to the car and the driver who's sitting in the car. So that's my suggestion. Everybody uses GoPros these days for all these driving shots. Every type of person, YouTuber who is doing reports on any new cars are out, just mounts 3 or 4 GoPros in there and shoots that way. And with optical image stabilization, if there is any shake or bumps, electronic image stabilization, it'll take any shakiness out in a bumpy road if it is banging around a lot.
Alex?
Yeah, you can do arms. Sorry, I flickered what I was going to show you there in a second. But you can use if you're going to use any kind of gimbal, the problem is just remember that you got a Z-axis movement that you have to take into account. So there has to be an arm that's going to do it. As Courtney said, it may look odd because it's floating and everything else isn't. If you go to Film Tools, you'll see many, many options. Filmtools.com, my favorite place to visit in LA, or one of my favorite places for work, at least, to visit in LA. And you'll see all these suction grips with different kinds of mounts. And I have bought most of them at some point in time. So these are really pretty industrial scale suction mounts that you can use. The one that I think I have the most of, I think, are these ones here. This is one, and what you want is something that you can pump the air out of it. So there are suction cups that you can kind of push up against it, and those are little ones. But what you have is you'll be able to pump the air out of it, and it will become part of the car. I find that the rig that holds the camera or the camera itself will fail before the suction cup will. So like once you get the suction cups on, especially if you have 2 or 3 of them on there, I find that your theta, just in case you're wondering, if it's not set up as a fin, if it's set up as a sail on your car, which is where you think you want it because you don't want the seam in the wrong place, it fails at about 55 miles an hour, in case you're wondering. The bottom part just rips right off. The cameras that I've seen a lot of are actually the Blackmagic. The GoPros are popular, but also the Blackmagic micro studios are nice little cameras. They're compact. That you can shade them, so on and so forth. And so I've seen those in quite a few shoots that we've worked on, where they're putting them in the corners to grab onto them. And
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, you could do what we did at NAB 2023, if Jeffrey remembers, where we jumped into this trailer that was on the floor that had a video wall behind us and looked like we were going down the road, but we were just inside of inside of a trailer on the show floor, and they had this big old arm. So that would be the big dollar way of doing it, is just to fake it with an LED wall.
Yeah, yes. And process trailers they use in Hollywood for the big movies too, where they just take the car and mount it in a 4-wheel flatbed, and then everything is rigged around that from that more stable platform. There's a lot of ways to do this. Also, lighting becomes easier nowadays. Back when I started out and we just had things like airy Fresnels, it was really hard to get light inside a car. Now, with all the little LEDs, particularly the daylight LEDs that balance to the outside, it's much easier to light a scene properly. For somebody who's literally driving in a practical situation, as always, whenever you're shooting something and you're trying to do 2 things at once, capture content and drive a car, pay attention to safety, because this is the circumstance where you find yourself forgetting for a moment and getting in trouble. Let's go to the next question.
Next one's up from Paul Wallace. Starlink Plaza Boring Bodega asks, Canva's highlights feature uses AI to automatically select the best moments from your long-form videos, saving you tedious time spent on editing and increasing the quality of your content. Isn't this what Google Photos does in a more haphazard way?
Jeffrey Powers, start us off with this.
Well, Google Photos and the Shorts thing are technically 2 different things. But yeah, basically what it's doing is it's reading what's going on, and there a lot of times for Canva, it's mostly reading from a script, and therefore figuring out what the best placement is. It's all AI, and a lot of those programs I'm really not a fan of. I've been playing with one for YouTube, specifically for YouTube, called Taja, TAJA.ai, which not only creates shorts, it also creates images and descriptions, the full package for YouTube. And even that, it gives you a ranking, but there's a lot of problems with trying to edit the video. There's a lot of problems with trying to figure out where everything's going to go. I end up just throwing it away. The quality of the video part is not, I don't think it's there for that, and until you can have something that can be fully edited and re-edited.
Jesse Kester.
Perhaps there's an editor who will use this to run circles around me, but it's hard for me to imagine audiences that will opt into media that the creators don't even bother opting into themselves.
Amen to that. I will say, as a longtime editor, to me, the exploratory phase when I'm looking through field footage is one of the most important things that I do. There's a famous story that Randy Ubilos, the creator of Final Cut, and actually Premiere before that, told was that he was on diving trips and he came back with tons of footage, but as he described it, it was all blue, 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 blue shark. Blue, 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 blue shark. Obviously, those long stretches where there was nothing in front of the frame, he wanted to get by. Now, you can have AI go in there and say, just get the sharks, and in that case, it might work. But my experience was that if I go out and shoot in something like a retail store, while I'm executing shots, I have had a number of circumstances where just letting the camera roll between location setups meant that for a moment the camera swung wildly, landed on the store logo, and then went someplace else. If I saw that because I was actually going through my footage, I might be able to take that, move it into slow-mo, and do a nice dreamy transition to a scene. I would never have known that if I was asking the software to pick that. So at some point, I think you need humans to be looking at things if you really want to do a top-notch job of content creation. Personal feeling, everybody's different. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that I find that a lot of times I'll go and look for things myself as I go through that. But if your shooting ratio is very high, I don't mind having something go through and look at a bunch of footage or look at something and highlight some things. We do this a little bit with a variety of AI tools to look at things and just go, well, did you see this? Did you see this? And more of a reminder of it than, a lot of times, you do have, I think that this is like, I'm surprised at what Apple will pull out of photos. Like I get these little movies from Apple that I never thought were there. I get photos that I don't remember taking that pop up every day. So I think that we don't want to, it can find a lot of things for us. And sometimes having it fill those in, I don't think it's a replacement for a human doing them, but I do think that it can help find a couple moments that you might have missed.
Jeffrey Powers, you wanted to speak on this?
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And I've seen very successful, high-end enterprise back in the day at NAB with programs like Moonshot, where you could actually do searches for past images, for past videos, and being able to bring that in. And I was actually talking to somebody yesterday about that. It would be nice if I could start going in any editor and start doing something, and all of a sudden an AI comes up and says, hey, you remember you did this video, a similar video to this back 10 years ago. You could actually add that to the whole thing. So having that concept added to it would be nice. But right now, it's really just whatever the metadata says in the video is what happens.
Hopefully, Paul, that helped you. Next question.
Next one up is from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York, and he asks, I'm looking to purchase a Mac Mini for a house of worship. This will primarily be used for video playback as well as showing live content in NDI Studio Monitor. What spec should I be looking at for this machine? Thanks.
Let's start with Jesse Kester. Jesse.
You should be looking at the ones you can afford, knowing that the Mac Mini is kind of the best bang for your buck in the Apple universe, so you can't really go wrong.
Alex.
I don't think you need anything more than the very base version. I have 4 of the M1 8 gig, M1 minis or whatever, and I think it would do all of these things. You can definitely, I would probably, to future-proof it, I'd probably get the newest M2 with 16 gigs because I would just buy that to have it because it's not very expensive now. I think it's $5.99 or whatever for maybe $7.99 for that. But that would be plenty safe. But I can play back things perfectly well, and I don't have any issue with. I don't think I would have any issue with NDI Monitor on the very initial base version that went out.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I'm with these guys. I'd say get the least expensive Mac Mini M2 and then allocate what you would have spent on stepping up to something in the $1,000 range towards a switch like this base model M4250 that's $599. So if you're going to get a $1,200 machine, throw $600 at this and save yourself lots of hair pulling. The other thing that I would look at is possibly throwing an NDI bridge PC, like a little B-Link. That's what I'm using right now, and transcoding everything on a lightweight network to NDI HX3, which will allow you to throw this thing anywhere because that makes it only like 8 megabit as opposed to 120, and that really makes it lightweight for older machines and for older networks.
And, whoops, I got my screen in the wrong place. That's everybody. So, next question.
Next one up is from Andy Kokendorfer in Vera, Florida, and he asks, Ford announced a patent to sell car camera data to police for speed violations. As more manufacturers sell data from gear we purchase, shouldn't we at least be compensated when our gear data is sold?
Courtney's going to start us off here. Courtney?
Well, it kind of has been for years with car data, because the insurance companies have been monitoring your driving habits and giving you discounts for better driving. They used to have an OBD plug that would plug into your OBD port in your car, which monitors your speeds. But nowadays, I think they just use an app. Progressive, I think, has an app called Snapshot that goes on your phone. And this is a little more comprehensive than just plugging into the OBD connector, because it can monitor your speed. It knows the map. It knows where you are. It knows what the speed limits are, where you're driving. And it monitors and can report back, since it has a cellular connection in real time. And for this, they give you a discount on your car insurance. So you are compensated for running this app, but it does spy on you. And I'm not sure what the patent that Ford has is for camera data. I think if they're going to issue speeding tickets just based on your car, thinking on you that you've been, run through a red light or something, that could be dangerous, and it could report that in. But I'd be careful. I think that was a perfect way to limit your sales, and so Ford might look twice at that before they implement that and give you no control over the data that it's reporting.
Jesse Kesser.
We will be compensated for our data when we stop giving it away for free.
Alex Lindsay.
I think it's great. I think it'll just make people buy less Fords and drive less. So I think that it's good.
Plot.
I think that people are going to continue to. I think that we're for a while people thought that their privacy didn't matter. I think a lot of people just thought, well, what could they do with it? And now we're starting to see what people can do with it. And so your data is something that you should always be kind of conscious to. Even back, I remember probably 30 years ago, maybe not quite 30 years, 25, 30 years ago, I was talking to my dad, and he's a lawyer, and he said if someone comes to him with a car accident, someone ran into them or whatever, he goes, the first thing I do is subpoena the cell phone records. He goes, because if the person is on the phone when they run into your car, settled. we don't have to have any more conversations about it. And so that data, some version of that data has been around for a long time. And the only way for you to really, you're not going to be able to get around it other than to somewhat disengage, and you just got to decide what you're giving up there.
Let's go to the next question.
Next one up is from Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, what experience have you had with the SKB iSeries cases versus Pelican cases, considering this case from my Yamaha DM3 mixer?
Oh, and he's got a link to it there. Jeffrey Powers, start us off.
I guess I missed the version of model, but basically I would always say with SKB versus Pelican is SKB focuses more on instruments than Pelican does. Pelicans are more generic type cases. So, but I have both. Both of them are, there's a lot of, mostly injection mold, except for the drum cases. I don't think they are. So they work really well on that aspect.
Guy Cochran?
Yeah, as a former reseller of both these, they're both great cases. However, I did visit Infocom this year and ran into a new brand, and it's called Fiasco. And all of us were just really shocked by how good the quality is on these. So I would at least give these guys a look on their website and see if they can custom mold the same kind of laser cut. If not, there's other folks that can give you just the inside, laser cut foam. But the cases of these are thicker than both the Pelican and the SKB series. It's more expensive, but definitely thicker and more robust.
Jesse Kester.
Use them, they're good. The real trick is staying consistent with your kit of cases. So we've got a mountain of Pelicans and 2 Nanic cases, and I always just want to throw the Nanics out the window when we're stacking up the Pelicans.
There you go. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, stacking is important. And I looked at this case for the DM3, and it's very, very similar to the Pelican. They're both injection molded polypropylene. They tend to be heavy a little bit, so better weigh that case and get the weight of the case and the weight of the mixer, and make sure you don't go over 50 pounds. Otherwise, you're going to be paying a lot of extra luggage fees on that if you're going to fly with it. I usually use a lot. Pelican has a lifetime guarantee too, and I've cashed in on my lifetime guarantee several years after I bought a Pelican case, where a latch will break or a roller wheel will be filed down by some conveyor belt somewhere, and they've replaced it, no questions asked. 4 or 5 years after I bought it. So that's check their warranty, because that can make a big difference as well between those cases. I like to use SKBs, and the other types of cases that they have are polycarbonate vacuum molded, which have the rack mount cases, so that they carry rack mount equipment. But I would not put that on a plane. I use that for if I'm carrying it around in a truck or a car. But I wouldn't ship those on airplanes unless they're the ones that have the internal shock mounts on.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, we've owned a lot of both. The SKBs that we've used the most are, like Courtney said, these are the ones that have inserts in them. These are rack mounts that go into them, and we do ship them on planes. So you do have to be careful about how you pack them. You don't want to have any gear that creates a cantilever, because they are getting bounced around. But we can get away with that, and they make a lot of. So this is the primary SKB that we use. For the most part, we do use Pelican cases. We find the build quality and the build quality is a little bit better with the Pelican cases than the SKBs if you're comparing those two together. One thing to look at also, we did stop at NAB a couple of years ago with My Case Builder. A pretty cool thing. They have an app that you can design what you want in that, and they will laser cut, label, do all the things for you to make that actually happen. This is what it looks like here. So this is they have a little app that you can use to design these, and they have most of the pre-made. They have pre-made and pro designs, but most of them. Many things you can say. I have this kind of camera, and it just knows what that cutout should be. So, those are the. So that's another thing to look at as well.
Next question.
Next one up is from Paul Wallace at Starlink Plaza Boring Bodega, and he asks, "Friend is a $99 AI-powered pendant acting as a chatbot confidant. What's up with all these pendants like this and live recorder / transcript meeting summary devices?"
Jesse Kester.
I think it's really good to understand these in relation to Grok. Yesterday we talked a little bit about how Grok now accesses Twitter for data scraping. And the data set from Twitter is huge, but it's very limited because it's very specific. There are a lot of rules on Twitter about the length of the tweet. There's the veil of anonymity that allows people to behave differently than they would in real life. And devices like these are basically data scraping actual human behavior. So that's the actual product is not a meeting transcription. The actual product is not a friend for you to walk around with. The product is ingesting how people really talk all day long to each other and feeding that to AI models.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, Amazon did that for a little while. They put out a watch that basically you could, the idea was that you turned it on, and when you talked, it would kind of tell you if you were sounding angry, if you were sounding happy, or anything like that. They discontinued that. I think it's just because of the sales. Didn't really work out in the end for the overall watch. But a lot of these things, both of these are, I believe, are just Bluetooth devices, speaker, microphone, that would then use the app in the phone that would do all of that work. But as Alex said earlier in an earlier question, that basically it's collecting information, and sometimes that information can be used for you, and sometimes it can be used against you in a lot of data collection as well.
Jesse wanted to get in there on the tail end.
Yeah, and if you don't like people using the data that you give away for free to make profit, definitely don't pay for people to take your data.
Oh, there you go. Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, "I am recording a lecture this weekend and have a backup system in place with a camera and a tascam recorder. If I need to edit that video and audio together, what's the best way to ensure AV sync? My main system is a PTZ and X32 to ATEM Mini Pro ISO."
Courtney, start us off.
Well, the best way to use double system is to use time code that has time of day running on it, a time of day clock. And you can get Tentacle Sync makes nice little time code generators that output LTC as audio, and you can plug that into your camera, and it will record on an audio track. And a similar thing, if your tascam does not support broadcast wave files with its internal timecode generator, or if it doesn't have a timecode input on it, you can use one of the channels of the tascam to record an audio version of longitudinal timecode, which is LTC, on its channel, and then you can use those in post. A cheaper way of doing it these days is to forgo those two things and just make sure your camera has a microphone on it that even is picking up a guide track. It doesn't have to be a high quality track, but most editorial software these days, you can put the tracks from the camera and the tracks from the tascam into your editorial package, and it'll sync them up between the waveforms between the camera's guide track and the high-quality track that comes off the tascam. It doesn't necessarily help you find takes if you've got a bunch of, especially if you're starting and stopping the camera separate from the recorder. You got to find the actual audio that matches up between the two. Timecode helps you do that and helps you organize that. But the other way of syncing via audio is cheaper, but it's going to require a little more work in post.
Jeffrey Powers?
Yeah, back in the early days, that's what I used, was a camera and a tascam. And of course, they have tascams that do time coding since then. But I would always take the 3.5 millimeter output and then bring it into the camera as the guide track from there. The only other thing I'll add is make sure that you have decent cards in your camera and your tascam, so you don't have any major skips or frame drops or anything like that, because if that breaks inside the recording, then you're going to have a hard time just marrying them up together. But a lot of times, the software will do it pretty well.
Alex?
If you're using an external recorder for the camera, obviously try to get audio inserted into that. You can either, like with the HyperDecks that we have some of the older HyperDecks that still have XLR inputs, which are really nice for that kind of thing. And otherwise, you can embed that back into the SDI before it gets to your recorder. It's a little bit more expensive, but not incredibly expensive. Not as expensive as finding the old HyperDecks. So you can take a look at that. A lot of the software now is pretty good at this. So if you don't stop and start a lot. I mean, you can start and stop a fair bit, but it gets a little confused. But if you start everything roughly at the same time and you don't stop until the end of that session, you grab all of that, the audio, the video, and everything else. Oftentimes you can throw it in, well, definitely the video. You can throw that into something like Final Cut and just say, sync this, and it'll sync it as a multicam immediately. Like it'll take just seconds to have it all synced up. And it'll ask you if you want to use the audio or the time code or whatever, and it will sync it perfectly. Very, very fast. You can then, and a lot of us, have done that for many years. Time code is better. If you're asking for the best way to do this, time code is better. But if you don't have access to time code, or the cameras don't take time code, or you have other cameras that don't take time code, Final Cut, Premiere, and Resolve all have some version of a multicam. I think that Final Cuts is probably still the best of the bunch, but they all work.
Courtney Gooden, I wanted to follow up.
Yeah, one thing I was going to also mention is try and make sure that your camera, if you're recording audio in your camera and separate audio, that your camera and your freestanding recorder are set to the same sample rate. So that's kind of important to keep things, especially if you're going to bring both those audio tracks into a single edit session. And you won't have to transcode it.
And that same sample rate should be 48.
48K. Yes. 48K.
It's not just that it's the same sample rate.
But sometimes your cameras will record at 44.1 sometimes. So check it just to check the specs of your camera to see what sample rate the audio is recorded at if you're recording in the camera as well.
Great advice. Don't forget, your questions drive our show every day. Your questions plus your votes on them. So it's a great time to do that. Let me pop up the traditional QR code down here. If you'd like to submit a question through the QR code system, you can shoot that with anything that reads QR codes. That'll take you into the system, and you can put your questions in really 24/7, all night long, all day long. This system works if you want to put in a question for the next show after this one is over. But one way or another, it's up to you to not only put those questions in, but vote on them. Voting on them is very important. It tells us what you find most interesting. We are going to be doing 2 hours of Q&A today, or as long as you would like to go. So plenty of room for questions today. Let's go to the next one.
And just as a quick correction, Q&A days are 1 hour. So we'll be doing 1 hour. So make sure to vote on those questions. It's not 2 hours.
My mistake. Thank you, Alex. Let's go to the next question.
Next one up is from Douglas Carmichael, and he asked, Tokyo-based Dreamtonics has introduced Vocoflex, which can transform vocals in real time with AI, including cloning a single singing voice with as little as 10 seconds of source audio. Thoughts?
Jesse Kester.
I got a thought on this one. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and that means technically right now I am living in the future. And this app is kind of like some of the stuff they promised in the future was that music would be organically driven. So this is the interface for the plugin. And you can see that it has a very a natural feel to it as you move between the different voices that there's. So each colored wave, wobbly thing is a different voice. And now they're showing you that you can set them up as MIDI cues and move between those different voices. But it's a very organic, humanistic interface, and I'm so thrilled that artists get to work with these interfaces instead of racks of little knobs that will change the frequency and the intensity of the sine wave or switch it over to a sawtooth wave. So that is the thought I have. That's what excited me most about this plugin.
Courtney, you had a thought about this?
Well, a single person can now become a barbershop quartet. Hey,
there you go. Let's go to our next question.
Jack Cannon, Phoenix, Arizona, asks, anyone testing iOS 18.1 with Apple Intelligence? I got it yesterday, but haven't had time to play with it yet.
Let's go to Alex. Alex, have you?
I'm just trying to get it installed. So I'm going back and forth. I've talked to a couple people that have used it, and so far they haven't had anything that they said was groundbreaking. They have been the thing that they have noticed is that a lot of the text, some of the generative stuff with text that's kind of embedded into it seems to be working pretty well. There's still a lot of features that are still not available. So so this is just the very start. But take a look at those things. Again, they've just started to open that door. I'm trying to get it installed soon. I do have 18 on both of my iPads, and if you have an iPad and you haven't played with the calculator and the notes calculator where you can write out your equations, I highly recommend it. It's kind of magical. So it's the magical feature that I've seen so far, like from 18 in general. Has been just this crazy thing that I can just write in what I want, and it just keeps coming out. And as I change it, it just keeps updating. And it's in my handwriting, like it's in the handwriting that I wrote it in. It's a mind melder.
I saw a video on that the other day too, and it just looked like gobsmacked. I'm not a big math guy, so I'm not sure how I would use it, but you can tell that they put a lot of effort into making this as human friendly as possible. And now you can work the way you used to work on a chalkboard, but in your computer with a lot of auto calculation behind it. It's pretty stunning. Next question.
Next one comes in from Andre Doele in Berlin, and he asks, system resources question for a well-spec'd vMix laptop, Thunderbolt 4, SonnetBox, having a 1080p Zoom-based show with max 6-up slides and graphics. Would it be better to use the vMix Zoom integrative natively or use ZoomISO and ingest 6 sources via SDI or NDI?
Both Jeffrey and Guy are going to help us out here. Jeff, we're going to start with Jeffrey Powers.
So there's argument. You can argue both ways easily, but what I like to do is, of course, I don't like to put everything onto one machine, because if that one machine fails, then you're fighting to get everything back up. So I would probably do the ZoomISO on a different machine, and then bring those in via NDI or SDI sources, as you suggested, and then let vMix do what vMix does, and that is capture, and then go from there. Because if vMix go down, you could have a secondary vMix that could be capturing as backup, or you could have another device that's recording or capturing from there. And then, of course, with that hardware, that would be focused on that, whereas vMix would be focused on streaming and sending it out.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I have both of these set up, and I've been running this meeting along. So this machine here is pushing 8 feeds. So I got 8 copies of Mimo Live running. This is actually Oliver's machine hosted here in my little baby cloud. Basically, you could log into this meeting and do this yourself. So this runs 24/7, and you can pressure load your system either way. But I personally would go with the ZoomISO integration. And basically, if you step into this meeting, and I'll put a link to it here in the chat, you can grab all these with native audio, isolated audio at a ZoomISO or the native vMix integration, and you can pull them and you can let them run and run and run and run, burn it in for 24 hours and see what, and cut, do your 2 ups, 4 ups, whatever you want to do, 6 ups, and see how it feels. But personally, I have the SonnetBox sitting right here. I have my vMix machine, and I've piped them in that way. And I there's just a safety feel there. You're not overly taxing the machine. It feels on my big Alienware machine that I have next door. When I suck them in via the vMix native integration, I run it for 24 hours and it's been solid. So I have no fear, and Greg Gibson will attest as well. He switched over to the native vMix integration and stopped bringing people in through the Zoom Rooms and using an external Zoom Rooms machine and piping them in. He's all in on vMix native integration. So nothing to be afraid of now. People are using it in production.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Aaron Giancarelli in Flagstaff, Arizona. And he says, need a streaming service that has a paywall set up for viewing an event. What does the panelist suggest?
Alex is going to help you out. Alex?
There are many options. Vimeo is probably the easiest one as a turnkey system to control access and to add paywalls to your system. So Vimeo they have a variety of different tools in that area. And I think that it's probably the easiest one for you to jump into for that type of thing.
Yeah, I use that as well. The Vimeo Pro account that I have is my content resource for almost anything I embed in a website anywhere. They have really robust tools for that and a lot of other tools in the back end. So.
What you're looking for is the enterprise and event tools that they have, and they've really built around that. So the Pro, what Bill's using is allows you to have a much higher quality video, but they also have streaming services with gateways. They even have over the top. You can have them build an app for you for the Apple TV or Roku or whatever you want, or multiple ones across all of them. And they have kind of a pre-built way to do that so that you can deliver all of your videos, control access, have memberships, all those things. So they're definitely the furthest along in that area.
Next question.
Next one up is from Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri, and he asks, what apps/programs would you recommend to start learning about video editing? Windows and or Mac, low or moderate price, please. Thanks.
Alex Lindsay.
We'll always recommend Ripple training. I mean, I think it's just some of the best made training out there for learning how to edit. Specifically, I think they do a lot of different apps, but specifically Final Cut and Resolve. There's incredible videos, and I've known Steve and Mark for 20 years, so and done stuff with them for almost 20 years. So I think that they're the best in the business.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, and if you want to go cross-platform a lot, start with Resolve. And Blackmagic has a number of training videos available for you. They even have training centers where you can take in-person classes. But they have a number of introduction to editing. And, of course, you can download DaVinci Resolve 19 for free and get started. It even runs on little Melee 4s. I've got one here. Let's see if it's up and running. Yep, look at that. Now, that's a $200 computer. If you don't have a Windows computer, you can even run Resolve on that, especially good for learning and teaching yourself how to do it without having to invest a lot of money in a very comprehensive workstation. So,
yeah, I've known Steve and Mark for a long time, too, and they do have top-class stuff. I will note also that the programs are easier to step into in the beginning, so it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to just become fluent so that you can do some work in any of the big NLEs, you can learn a lot by watching a few beginner YouTube things. But if you really want to get mastery, some sort of formal training, I can't recommend it enough. I know that even though I started on day one with Final Cut, it was 2 or 3 years of using it almost daily before I felt like I had really explored all of its capabilities. There are some very sophisticated things in all of these NLEs that if you really want to become a ninja at it, you really, guidance will save you a lot of trial and error and going down blind alleys. So I recommend you do some form of training if you want to get really good. Again, if it's a casual thing, learn on your own and enjoy the savings. But if you can get a pro to help you or get a pro program to help you, you'll get farther faster. Let's go to the next question.
Next one up is from Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, Master Tape Rescue aims to reunite lost master tapes with their owners. Considering the consolidation and change in the music industry, would it be a daunting task to find said owners? And he's got a link to a Mix Online article.
Jesse Kester, what do you think?
So this project is aiming to reunite old tapes that are found in studios and attics with the people who actually own them. It's more focused on larger acts. So, the article talks a lot about reuniting masters with the Rolling Stones or, artists at that level. It's not really for low level. If your grandpa recorded something 50 years ago, that's not really what they're focused on. The real daunting task, and they don't handle any of what I'm about to talk about. The real daunting task is making sure that these tapes are actually playable. So what they're doing is transcribing what's written on the box of the tape and putting it in a database that you can search if you want to look around in that. This does not mean that any of these tapes should be put on a reel-to-reel machine and anybody should press play. Pretty much anything on these lists would have to go through a recovery restoration process before they could be played back, recorded, and broadcast out to the world at large. So it's just a service for kind of transcribing what's on the reel-to-reel tape box and putting that in a database that you can search if you're looking for something related to somebody you knew or some project you were on.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, it's super hard if somebody's just playing bass guitar and they, you don't hear their voice, you just hear their instrument. So you have to find little bits and pieces. It's not impossible. Going beyond the whole restoration part that Jesse was talking about, there is AI forensics that's happening right now, and several different ways to try and figure out how something was done, where it was done, when it was done, and it's more than just voices, because I know that there are some companies out there that are trying to do like a 24andMe type situation for finding people through the audio that they've created throughout their time. So, but once again, if it's just instruments, that's going to be a lot tougher to do. So you're going to have to really rely on what was recorded, what was written down off of that, and that's where this company comes in.
Next question.
Next one up is from Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts, and he asked, do HDMI matrix products pass through the EDID or override with their own? What does the computer see if I split computer output into a 1080 and 4K monitor?
Courtney Gooden, start us off.
I guess it depends on the brand and the quality of the matrix switch. And I know Alex has some, and he's going to speak to his experience. But a lot of them, the problem with HDMI is HDCP. And to be an HDMI qualified device has to support HDCP, which is high definition content protection, which means every time you plug in or connect a new device up via HDMI, it's supposed to talk back to the source and agree that it's a monitor and not a recording device. And it will then either mute the video, turn it to black, if it is a recording device, or pass it along. This is why a lot of times with regular HDMI switches, when you switch, it'll go black for a period of time while it renegotiates that HDCP compliance. A lot of them are non-HDCP compliant, so you may run into the black screen problem. And some of them, a lot of the better ones have EDID consistency. In other words, they'll look at the input and they'll determine an EDID, and then it'll just fix that in memory, and it'll report that EDID back to all the other inputs that are connected. But you have to agree on I think you have to agree on a common resolution. In other words, mixing 4K and 1080p might be problematic if you're going to be switching back and forth between the two and not just routing from one 4K source to a 4K monitor or from one 1080 source to a 1080 monitor. And maybe Alex can tell us his experience in mixing resolutions. That can be problematic.
Alex?
Yeah, I don't have a scale. I don't think that my Blackbird has a scaler. I have a Blackbird 8x8, and it does a couple things. One is it has a web interface, which allows you to go in there and kind of start defining what you want to do there. You can try to set the EDID. I haven't been very successful at that, or where it sets what it is, and it delivers back. What I generally do is I plug a device in, I plug the monitor in, I route to one monitor, and then I freeze that EDID. So I go, this is what you're talking to. And then in the Blackbird, you can say, just copy that EDID and hold on to it, as Courtney said, but I have it, you kind of consciously do that. And so I do that with all the monitors, and so it kind of knows what it should do. And what happens is the computers just interact now with the Blackbird, and they don't know what's on the other side. So the computers, because I'm constantly changing things, and I realize, I can't find a monitor, and the computer still thinks the monitor's there because it's sending it to the Blackbird, but it doesn't know where it went after that. So that's the and it's been really successful for me. I paid way too much for it. It's much less expensive now than it was when I bought it. Not that I'm bitter, but I think it's $500 or $600, and it's been great. I do think that the next time I rip my office apart, I'm probably going to go ahead and go back to an SDI 20x20 router with a SDI switcher so that I can have more I/O. I'm kind of at the limit of what I can do with this I/O. But if you're going to stick with HDMI, I'll probably keep it and use it somewhere else. But if you're going to stick with HDMI, it's great value. Once you go up above 8x8, it gets real expensive.
Next question.
Next one in from Rion Smith in Trinidad, West Indies, and he asked, looking into doing annual general meetings, does Office Hours have a lighter version of Mukana that a small team can use to get the Q&A plus voting done?
Boy, are you in the right place, Alex Lindsay.
Yes. Go ahead and reach out to us. There's lots of different versions of. We use the heaviest version of Office Hours of Mukana here on the show, but we have very light versions and medium versions and all kinds of customized versions. And so go ahead and reach out to me and we can talk about it.
There you go. Next question.
Next one in from Eduardo Augustine in Panama City, and he asks, is there any USB switcher compatible with the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO to change the SSD connected to the ATEM with the press of a button?
Jeffrey Powers, do you have a thought?
So if you're talking about switching to an SSD so you can disconnect another SSD, take it to another computer and do any type of editing, I would highly recommend against doing anything like that because you're affecting the overall hardware of the ISO as you're doing it. You're supposed to set everything up before you hit the record, before you hit the stream button, and go from there. With that said, that USB connection, you don't have to connect it up to a single USB. In fact, like for instance, I have right here at my desk the Mercury Elite Pro Dual from OWC, and it's a dual drive system. I can set it up as RAID, and I can set it up as striped, and I can set it up as two single records. When I plugged that into, or at least last time I did that, I plugged it into my ATEM, it recognized both drives so I could switch back and forth between the two. But for the most part, I would highly recommend not to unplug anything and plug anything in as you're doing the recording.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, Caleb Pike of DSLR News Shooter made this video called The Ultimate Recorder, and in it he does show this button that allows you to switch between multiple SSDs. I'll put, you guys can look it up. It's called The Ultimate Video Recorder, and he shows switching between multiple drives and multiple hyperdecks with the push of a button. So watch this video, and in the description is a link to that exact button and how he does it.
That looks fascinating. All right, next question.
Next one up is from Robert Soji in Los Angeles, California, and he asked, looking for a 200-watt COB bicolor light under $500. Any recommendations?
Oh, we've got a few. Jesse Kester's going to start us off.
You're in an okay zone for that price range. So what I'm going to recommend are, we've used GVMs. We use them not infrequently. They are a bit of a power hog. They aren't the most efficient lights on the market. ZU, I've never used those. And if you want some real outside-the-box thinking, this is not within your budget, but GVM has made a bicolor LED that's one LED on each side. So a pretty creative problem solving there.
Wow, that's interesting. Alex.
I've used a lot of NAND lights. So I'm lit from NAND lights as well, and they have a couple of them. This one's not quite 200. They have a couple different versions of these. This is the NAND light Forza 150 for about the 431 that you're looking for bicolor. But they have ones, and I don't know what the difference is between all of them. The Forzas are all I have, these Forzas here, but they have some less expensive systems that are definitely well within. Let's see if I can shop products here. Like if we go down to these, and I just haven't really figured, like this one down here, this 300B is only 383. And I'm not sure what they're changing there, but I will say that a lot of them have a lot of features to them. They have a lot of effects, control. So those are things that are there. Another one to look at, and I just don't know whether it fits into your price range, is aperture. So that's another lighting group that you might want to look at too.
And you will notice that most of those have the same kind of mount on the front of them. That's called a Bowens mount. It came out of the photography industry, been around for a long time. Sadly, Bowens didn't make it through the pandemic, and the company is no longer around. But their mounting system,
their mounts survived
everywhere and constantly. And I would not probably buy another light that didn't have a Bowens mount unless it was for a specific thing. All my soft boxes, all my reflectors, I just have a lot of ancillary equipment that uses the Bowens mount. So if you get that, you're in an ecosystem that will probably last forever, and you'll have a lot of possibilities. Strip banks, soft boxes, just all sorts of stuff that'll click onto the front of your light and give you more utility out of that single source chip. Next question.
Next one comes in from Douglas Carmichael, and he asks, has anyone had experience with mini forums, mini PCs like the MS-01? I've heard good reviews of them from the Home Lab crowd, and he's got a link in the question to the mini forum.
Courtney Gooden's going to start us out here. Courtney?
I like a lot of the computers that Minis Forum puts out for these compact PCs. This one happens to be kind of a powerhouse, the one he mentioned. It's an i9. So it's a 13th gen. I'd be careful about the 13th. Oh, sorry, not that one. This one. I'd be careful about the 13th gen Intel processors. They've had some problems with them. There's a microcode fix that you have to download from Intel that fixes some oxidation and sudden crashing issues that they've been having with these 13th gen processors. So check into that. I'd wait till the 14th gen comes out. Till they come out with a 14th gen because they will probably have this fixed. But it has a collection of 2.5 gig Ethernet ports and, gosh, ATEM. Who would have thought I could never get the hang of it? Take a look at that. You can try it, but make sure you update it. Check with Intel and upgrade the processor's microcode before you use it for very much, because if you're pushing it very hard, it can apparently create oxidation in the inside the processor itself, which can cause it to be flaky. So be forewarned.
Guy Cochran.
Yeah, I've got this one in my cart ready to purchase. I've got 5 friends that have them, and the reason why they bought them, there's 2 things, particularly that's different than this unit as opposed to any other ones on the market. This one actually has 4 network connections, so 2.5 gig ports that are Ethernet native, but there's also 2 SFP ports that are 10 gig. So you can have 4 network connections on this, and you can also install a small, I'll remember what the name of the form factor is, but it's a small graphics card from NVIDIA can be placed in there. It's a mobile graphics card. So Jeff Keithley's done this. He found one of those and stuck it in there, and he's beating it up with vMix's kind of a replacement for rack mount computers, because shipping big computers and the heating and cooling and all that. So, and other people have put virtualization software on this, so you can get not just an i9. So Jonas bought the cheaper version, the i5, and that's the one I'm looking at getting. And he bought it bare bones because, like me, we both have just MISC SSDs and RAM laying around. So you can buy it. Like this one right here is only $419. It's sold out right now, but it's the i5 12th gen. The expensive one is that Jeff Keithley bought. He bought the i9 13900H, and that one steps up to almost $900 if you get it with the RAM, with the 1 terabyte. So you're at, actually it's on sale. So it was $1,000 before, and now it's down to $839. So I'd say it's a buy. I mean, all those guys, they're heavy hitters, and they haven't been complaining about them. They've enjoyed using them. So I'm going to get one. I just need to figure out which one I'm going to get, i5 or i9.
Jeffrey Powers.
Yeah, I have some enterprise friends that use this specific box because you can actually get software to turn it into a router. You can turn it into an SD-WAN router, have your MLTPS go to the other office and back and forth. I like the fact that, as Guy said, that you can put a graphics card in there. I'd probably use that more for NDI type situations where I can put in an NDI router and have that run from there hardware-wise. So it's definitely, there's a lot of people that are using this computer for sure.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Robert Shoji in Los Angeles, California, and he asks, can Final Cut Pro read LTC linear timecode?
Well, I would say this. It understands it. Now, getting it in can sometimes be a difficult process, depending on the tape source that you're running it in, if that's where the linear timecode, or if it's in a file somehow. It has the capacity to use that. It handles a lot of different forms of timecode internally. It can do that. It can do Handycam type timecode. It's built for professional SMPTE timecode, and it has a lot of capabilities for handling that. Something from the outside, you just have to make sure that you have the hardware to read the tape. You have something, whether it's an RS-232 port or whatever is sending out that timecode information, and then some kind of interface to get it into the digital realm so that it can get into your computer and your computer can read it. So do some research, walk through the steps. It understands it if it gets into the system, but sometimes that can be a little iffy to get it in there. Courtney, what are your experiences?
Well, some audit, I don't know about Final Cut. Maybe you have the answer on this. Can it interpret LTC that's recorded on an audio track and pull the time code off of that LTC code that says an audio track?
I saw some people experimenting with that and having some success. I haven't seen anybody do it in a long time. That was one of the old, you're shooting Betacam and you're going to feed the time code that, if you've ever heard that signal, you'll never forget it, time code on an audio track. Again, it's getting something that'll read that audio track and a pathway to get it into an interpreter and then into Final Cut. If you can do those steps, it'll be happy with the result. It's just time code like any other time code. So let's move to the next question.
Next one in from Zach Jeffers in the great PNW, and he asks, what tools can I use to dissect the metadata from SRT and NDI feeds? Just want to see all the data being transmitted and the way it's formatted, etc. CLI tool preferred or Windows app if needed?
So in most cases, metadata is plain text in a form that's difficult to read. So the question is, what do you have that'll parse it? There are a few tools out there. I don't use a lot of them, so I'm not sure. But I think if you did some searches on Google, you would probably find some solutions. I know that the whole world is operated by kind of hidden metadata now, and if you get some tool that'll pull it off there, you'll have a lot of data. Guy, do you have a more clear and cogent solution?
This was a little too geeky for me, but in the NDI performance networking course that VizRT has in the Learn Upon University, it used to be a $600 course and now it's free. Kane Peterson put that together, and there is, I believe it's Wireshark is one of the apps, and there's one other IP something that'll allow you to grab packets. That's a Windows app that Wireshark is, and you can grab little bits out of there. I'm not sure if it'll be able to just give you a gobbledygook of a bunch of just data everywhere, or if it'll allow you to isolate specific NDI metadata. This might be a one to bring back on a Friday when Jeff Keithley's on board and see if we can get a perfect answer to that one.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very good idea. The text stream is accessible, but whether somebody can read, parse that, and make it into some useful data for you is kind of the next level, and Jeff may be able to help us with that. So keep your eyes open for him. Let's go to the next question.
Håkan Fors in Stockholm, Sweden asks, would you recommend using Parsec for remote productions? Alex
Lindsay, what do you think?
We know a lot of people that are using it very successfully. I'm not using it as much for the remote production that we're picking up to speed, but I know that it's a very popular tool. It's worked fairly well.
Guy?
Yeah, we use a lot of Splashtop, but Parsec for Teams in particular. So there's free Parsec, and then there's Parsec for Teams. And I know one of the largest nonprofits in the country that uses Parsec for Teams specifically. So they get you. That's where they get you. Is you have to buy a minimum of, I believe it's either 5 or 10 licenses to get the full higher frame rate, the 444 color. There's something else there's some credentialing that happens as well. I think it's single sign-on and something else. But Parsec's amazing. Most of the gamers have allowed this to really thrive because they've pushed the envelope. But yeah, Parsec and Splashtop would be the other one that I'd be looking at, because if you have a team, you're going to see very quickly, because I can buy individual licenses for Splashtop. So I only have 3 licenses, where I know that you can also go up to 10 with Splashtop, and you unlock some of those additional features if you need them.
We're just doing a first hour today, so we may go a little over here, and it may go black for a second. Let me just toss out a couple. Well, I think we'll just go to the next question, see if this is continuous. So next question.
Next one in from Douglas Carmichael, and he says, Guy, how are you creating your baby cloud? I've heard you mention Mac Stadium a lot before.
Guy?
Yeah, basically it's a 10 gig fiber connection coming into my house from Ziply. I have a backup for failover from Comcast. So that goes into a Dream Machine, which goes into a 10 gig link aggregation switch from Ubiquiti. And from there, it goes into 4 different switches. And one of the machines is Oliver's Mac Studio Ultra. It's like a $4,000 machine with 24 cores, super hot rod. And then we're just kind of dipping our toes in the water, because what you start to realize why the big players have data centers is power backup, generators, racks of gear with AC and cooling. And I'm starting to realize that my baby cloud is probably going to stay a baby, because by the time I put all this money into this infrastructure, it's going to be big, big dollars. So kind of hanging back a little bit right now and deciding what the next steps are. But basically, I want to get a rack and host multiple machines for NDI Bridge, virtual production. So I'm still kind of kicking around the idea. So that's my baby cloud.
Next question.
Next one in from Todd Crane in Nashville, Tennessee. And he says, Shure SM7db versus SM7B plus Cloud Lifter. Thoughts?
Courtney?
I would go for the Shure SM7db if you don't already have an SM7B. The Cloud Lifter has been known to be a little bit noisy since Shure. They're both FET preamps that are built into the microphone that take 48-volt phantom in and amplify that signal before it leaves for the XLR plug out. I think the Shure can go plus 18. It can either bypass and go 0 dB. In other words, you're bypassing the FET preamp, or you can go plus 18 or plus 28 dB. I don't know if the Cloud Lifter, I haven't used a Cloud Lifter because everybody talked so much smack about it. So I would say Shure, a built-in preamp, and the DB is probably better because they could tailor that FET preamp to match the characteristics of the microphone better than just your general Cloud Lifter.
Alex Lindsay.
I'd recommend an SM7B with a proper preamp. So but friends don't let friends. A Cloud Lifter is something you put in your bag. And when something goes wrong, you put it into the line. It is a valuable tool to fix a mic in an emergency. If it's part of your regular pipeline, you need to rethink your life choices. So, you just do not put a Cloud Lifter in as your regular pipeline. It is a fix for a problem, and it's a very valuable fix in that problem, but it adds noise to the system, and it's cheap. And you're cheapening your mic by doing that. So get a good preamp to make that work.
Thank you all for being here today. That is going to be our show. To all of the producers who added questions in, we appreciate you every single day coming in and making this show run by driving it with your questions and your vote on those questions. To the panelists who show up every day to volunteer their time and expertise to answer questions, thank you, one and all. Everybody who is here this week has done a fabulous job. And the back-end crew. They always are acknowledged because it's unbelievable the amount of work. Not just the live crew who's here on the show every day, although those people are magnificent all around the world making this show happen in real time, but the teams of people behind trying to figure out who are the guests coming up, what is the nature of the show, taking care of the IT stuff in the background. There's just a huge village here, and we appreciate everybody's efforts in making making office hours. My brain is tired. I've been out working too hard. Anyway, thank you for watching today. The stats today, the Tlaloc Traversal, we traveled 57,000 miles. That's the equivalent of 91,000 kilometers and 449 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow.
There we go. That's fun.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Wolverine and Deadpool.
You're going
Alexander Knight
at the Chinese.
You're going?
Are you going to go see it, Courtney?
I think so. Yeah, I haven't been to the Chinese theater in about 7 years, so I thought maybe I'll go see it.
I've never
around the corner from you.
I've never seen a movie at the Chinese. I go to the Chinese relatively often. So I've been on the
since they
Chinese
converted
roof.
it to IMAX. They dug out the whole thing and they converted it to IMAX.
Question is, who has the biggest hands of Hollywood's old stars? That's.
Yeah.
I wonder if somebody's done a meta.
I wouldn't want to touch those things. Can you imagine the number of people that have stuck their hands
like,
in
what are my
there?
hands? What are my hands like there?